Hello and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. I'm super happy that you're here. I'm also so super happy and honored to have my three co-hosts, Alan Fessenden, Megan Vasilis, and Sergio Giovanni are all joining me for it's actually week 5, but week 4 of the class of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. If you don't know what's going on, we are going through the entire book, lesson by lesson, figuring out what it means to recover and rediscover our sense of ourselves as artists. And if you want to join in, feel free. We would love it if you would go back and listen to the previous episodes and then join in, read the book, and join us for the rest of the class as we go through it. It's super exciting, super fun, and it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey for me already. I'll talk about some of that later in the episode. And I have a special treat for you. Megan Vasilis has kindly and graciously agreed to take over the hosting duties for the rest of the day. So you're going to get to hear her perspective and her questions, and I get to sit in the answering seat along with Alan and Sergio. So I'm super excited about that. I wanted to tell you that this episode is, as always, brought to you by Brain FM. It's my favorite app. It's the app I use to do all my creative work. It's the app I use to do all my meditation. It helps me get to sleep. It helps me do accounting, which you know I'm terrible at. So I love it, love it, love it. I would not recommend anything I don't love. Please, if you want to try it, there's a free trial. Go to brain.fm/innovative mindset and then use the coupon code innovative mindset, all one word, and you can get 20% off. And it's an affiliate link, of course. So I might get a little cash back if you decide to use it. Let's get on with the show. First of all, thank you so much, all three of you, for joining me on this journey. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Isolde.
Everybody's like, who talks now? So, Megan, I am super honored that you are going to take over the duties of host. What would you like to do? How would you like to do it? Should I just say and take it away, or is there something special you'd like to do by way of introduction?
Yeah, I think it's fine. We can just get started. So, I just wanted to say thank you to Isolde for letting me swap seats with her for a day. She has left really big shoes to fill, but I'm really excited.
You're going to do great.
Thank you. So I wanted to start with talking about morning pages. First of all, like, how has that gone this week? We're talking this week about recovering a sense of integrity. So I kind of just wanted to go around just to start break things in a little bit to just see like how that has gone for all of us. And why don't you start us off, Isolde?
All right. In the hot seat, as it were. Let's see. How did it go for me? Well, up until tonight, when I found leaking coming through my walls, everything was great. I did my morning pages, and I had some terrific realizations. A lot of it is in the fact that I already feel like an artist. Part of it was because I've done the book many times, but part of it is because it's sort of a reintegration of what's going on. And this week's morning pages were revelatory because I realized that I have had these 5 different classes that I teach regularly live that I could create, turn sort of into online classes. And in the morning pages, I said to myself, well, why haven't you done that yet exactly? So I started working on 2 of the classes this week, and I'm almost done with one of them. So that's been amazing to just sort of have the morning pages. I was writing to myself and I went, yeah, why haven't I done that? And it was a question I got to ask myself and got to answer it pretty immediately by starting to work on the class. And I hope to have it done by as early as maybe April 1st. So that's exciting. And did you ask about artist dates or just the morning pages?
We can cover artist dates too. What was your artist date this week, Isolde?
I went to the New York Public Library, and this time I was able to manage to go to the Treasures exhibit, which was super cool. Charles Dickens' desk was there. Shakespeare's First Folio was there. A dress by the amazing dancer Loie Fuller. All sorts of movies and images that we have not seen before. The initial model for Sunday in the Park with George Stephen Sondheim's amazing musical is on display there. So I was able to just wander around for about an hour and a half and look at all of these amazing artistic, creative things that other people have done before me and got super inspired about the musical that I'm writing, Soul Song. So that part of it was really eye-opening that, yeah, I can do it. And that was something that this musical I've been wanting to write for probably the better part of 30 years and have never thought that I could. But this last week, I started on the character studies for that show. So that's really exciting. And it wouldn't have happened, I don't think, if I hadn't been inspired by seeing that model of the Sunday in the Park with George set.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. I'm really jealous of that New York Public Library adventure.
Well, I'll go again if you want.
Yeah,
if you want to go, I'm happy to go again.
That would be awesome. I would love to do that. Sergio, how about you?
Hey, how's it going? First, I just want to say that I'm excited for today's episode, for Megan to be hosting. So that's awesome. And also that I am jelly as well of Isolda's Artist Date. I love the New York Public Library, and it's definitely such an inspiring place for me as well. And I also love that you're working on a musical, and would love to hear more about that, because I know that's going to be amazing.
I really hope so.
I'm sure it is. As far as my morning pages, I know that I've expressed in the past multiple times that they can be quite challenging for me to just do every day. But this week I did do all 7 days of my morning pages. And the other day, on one of the, in quotations, mornings, because I don't always do them in the morning, if I'm being honest, I started writing about comic books. I'm a big fan, as I've said in the past. And the 3 pages just flew by in no time. And I've done that in the past, wrote about comics and stuff. But that day especially, I just started writing about comics that I got and ones that I was excited about reading. And before I knew it, the 3 pages were done. I almost did more than 3 pages, actually. I had more that I was going to write, but I told myself to stop because I finished. So it was 3 pages. And I just thought that was really great. When in doubt, at least for me, just write about comics. Or for others, I guess if you're finding it hard to get through 3 pages every day, then just start writing about your favorite hobby or passion and see how far that gets you. And yeah, as far as my artist date this week, I hate to, well, I don't hate to, but yeah, I'm going to keep talking about comic books. So on Wednesday when I go to pick up my comics, my new comics for that week, I decided to walk to the mall. It's an outside mall that's not too far, that I haven't been to in a while, and I just walked around and did some window shopping, and then picked up some food to take home, and it was really nice. It was a day that wasn't as cold, so yeah, that was enjoyable.
Oh, that sounds really awesome. I'm also jealous of that artist date. I can honestly say that I've never had I've never struggled to stop when writing morning pages. I think I tend to be someone who writes I tend to be too brief, if anything. Like, it's always a struggle for me to get to the end of 3 pages. I always feel like I should win some kind of medal for getting to the end. So I admire that you actually wanted to continue, because that's never happened to me.
Yeah, exactly. I know the feeling. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. So how about you, Alan?
Me, Megan, I thanks again for hosting today, and I did my morning pages. I've been pretty consistent about it, and I did have one day where I wrote an extra page. So it is hard for me, and there's a lot of times that I'll just stop and start, and I kept feeling my mind drift off the page and into like the meandering thought, and I had to keep bringing me back towards the page, and I think doing that was prompting me to be like, well, investigate some of the stuff you've been sort of mentally juggling in this battle for attention between my thoughts and my morning pages, which you would think they would be more easily merged, but I tend to think about something and I was like, it's much easier to just let my mind wander on it than out in space rather than put it to the paper. And I think there was another. You guys know I had a big sort of scene written this week, and for the show I've been working on, and that was huge. And the beginning of that actually started my morning pages. I did like a 1 page was a sort of rough scribbled idea of what that would be, and then a day or two later I was able to just, without looking at it, just sort of start to work on it and know that outline had sort of manifested in the pages, and I was like, okay, well, I remember that structure, and it really made it easier for me to write that big scene that I'm excited to have gotten done. And then for my artist date, I went to the House of Yes, and people have been talking about this place forever, and I was like, well, this is the kind of thing that I would be like, I don't know who wants to go to this, but I kind of want to go do it. And I went to this thing called Dirty Circus, and it's like a cabaret burlesque show, and it's hosted by this wonderful drag queen, Miss Vivian V, I think, and a slice of pizza. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go to this thing alone. What's the scope? I've never been to it. I've had friends who have performed, Hilla Killa, who's done stuff there, and I think other people. And so, but I've never been myself. And I was like, well, I don't know what to expect. And it was great. It was really great. And I was reading a review, and they're like, oh, I always make friends here. And I was like, well, we'll see. That's not my objective. And then I sat down in the seat. Someone came over, sat next to me. We started talking, and now I have a new Instagram friend. And that was fun. And it was a really bizarre, exciting show. And part of me was like, this is what I should be doing. And then part of me was like, absolutely not. This is what other people should be doing, but it's amazing, and I'm glad I got to go see it. So, but there's like a lot of clowny aspect, and the burlesque aspect of it is really fun and very sexy and very bizarre and incredible, and it was really great to go do. What about you, Megan? How have your morning pages been?
Well, this week they have actually been going atrociously, and my excuse is that I was moving earlier in the week, but I had planned that I was probably going to miss them 2 days. I had that intention set, not because I wanted to miss them, but because I thought I want to like forgive myself in advance if I can't get to them, and that was exactly what happened. I couldn't get to them like Tuesday and Wednesday, but after that I was pretty consistent, and I didn't really have any huge revelations this week through the morning pages, but I am finding the longer I do them, the easier it is for me to get to the end of that third page. Like I mentioned, that it's really hard for me sometimes to keep writing when I want to stop, or like when I have a lot of different thoughts in my mind that I'm trying to sort through on the page. It is getting easier for me to sort of let that flow instead of stopping and questioning every single thought, which I think is one of the reasons why it was taking me so long at the beginning. I think in the first episode I mentioned that it was taking me up to like 35-40 minutes to get to 3 pages. And it's taking me now maybe 20 minutes. And I think it's because I've stopped interrogating every single thought as it comes out of the pen. I'm just sort of letting it happen. And that is definitely new for me. It's not something that comes naturally. So that's been really cool. And for my artist date this week, I was really tired after all of that moving of stuff up the stairs to my apartment. So I just went for a long walk after the storm came through New York, and I took pictures of everything covered in snow, and it was really, really fun. I couldn't stay out there very long just because it was frigid, but I loved the pictures that I took, and it was just kind of a new way to find that. I mean, I'm finding that I'm using photography for that outlet a lot now, because I don't have the same expectations around it that I do around my writing, I think, because I've been taking pictures for really not very long, in context of how long I've been writing. So I'm more okay with feeling like I'm just mediocre at taking pictures, and that's okay. And so it was really, really nice. I loved getting out there and seeing everything before people walked on it even. It was fantastic. So that was my experience. So something else sorry, what was that, Sergio?
Megan, can I just say that I understand why it would feel mediocre to take pictures, but not. It would feel okay, but not okay to feel mediocre to write, because you're an excellent writer, so that wouldn't be okay for you to feel that way.
Thank you. I think I do tend to be like really, really hard on myself, but it's easier for me to let go of that when I'm just expressing myself in a different way, because I don't have the same.
I'm sure your photos. I'm sure your photos are fantastic as well. And I actually wanted to ask. I think it might have been the first week that you mentioned that for the morning pages, that is, that your handwriting, physical handwriting, was a problem. Has that gotten better for your hands, or is it still a painful process?
It does still hurt physically, but I think because I'm able to spend less time on it, it's less of a problem now. It doesn't hurt to the point now where I feel like I just don't even want to do it. It's more that I think I'm just not used to it. But I'm getting more used to it now. But in the beginning, I mean, that was really just kind of a very foreign feeling to me because I've been typing since, almost since I could write. But yeah, I think that that is getting easier because I'm spending less time on it now.
That's good. I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything they wanted to share about the morning pages?
I actually wanted to say something that that is sort of a comment on what you said, Megan, and that is that I think that we all judge ourselves really harshly, and we expect a certain amount of perfection for things we think we're supposed to be good at. And I think I said it recently in another episode where I said it's okay to suck. That when you're an artist, when you're a creator, you're making something that has never existed before. And it's not always going to be great, but it's on the way to great. You might be on the first rung of the ladder. You might be standing 1 foot in poop and on the first rung out of poop, but you're climbing the ladder towards greatness with every word you write, with every step you take. So I think personally, where I go with that kind of thing is I really am trying very hard, even with things that I think I'm supposed to be good at, quote unquote. I'm trying to be okay with not being perfect. Like learning a new song, I'm not always going to be perfect. Even though I expect that of myself sometimes, I'm working actively on going, it's okay to suck. It's okay to suck. I'm okay if I suck because I'm, again, step by step moving towards not sucking and then being good and then being fantastic. And I think that is key to my personal journey as a creative in any format. It's okay for me. And I encourage, if you're listening to this, same thing. It's okay if you're not as great as you would like to be, because as long as you're working on it, you're moving towards that. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, definitely. I really agree with that. I'm really trying to question the assumptions I have now about what I should be good at, because I think that those ideas and that sort of paradigm you have in your mind, for me at least, I think it can really hold me back sometimes in terms of growth and pushing myself. And that's another thing that the morning pages, not necessarily even this week, but throughout the whole process, that's been highlighting for me, that in a lot of ways, I've one of the things that's caused me to be, that's made it difficult for me, I think, to finish projects sometimes, is that I have struggled with that in the past, like having the assumption that this should be good and then it's not, So I think that coming into everything with more of a growth mindset is a lot healthier for the perfectionists among us. So yeah, I also wanted to talk about something in this chapter that Cameron highlighted a lot, was the idea that morning pages should sort of illuminate this idea of integrity in your own life, not just even in your creative life, but throughout sort of everything you have going on. And she talks about how words are sometimes a way to sort of justify crappy circumstances to ourselves. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, she says it more eloquently than that, but sometimes like morning pages can help us circumvent that and show us where we aren't aligned in our lives in a lot of different ways. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how that might have shown up, or if you think that idea even makes sense. Let's start with Sergio.
Yeah, for me, I don't think that the morning pages are necessarily having that effect. And I know a large sentiment of this book is recovering or discovering the artist in you, and how the morning pages can help you with that. And I know she says that the morning pages affect more than just your creativity, but that's the main focus of this process. And for me, I'm not necessarily rediscovering. I think I've done that already a few years ago. So I'm not sure if the morning pages are doing that for me at the moment. And I don't want to be the one guy who's like, morning pages suck. That's not how I feel. I do feel that there have definitely been moments in my pages, more recently especially, that have really resonated with me and spoken to me, and had a big, I had a big takeaway from those instances. But yeah, I think that's how I feel about the morning pages in that regard. How about you, Alan?
Yeah, I was. It's funny. I've been thinking similarly. Like it wasn't working for me this way, or I haven't felt like that investigation into everything. And it's not like I don't have these little moments where I'm not making discoveries on who I am or how I feel about things. And I really liked. I think she talks about being the word okay actually being sort of this like blanket word to make things tolerable, but it doesn't really answer to how we feel. And that really sort of hit me in a way, because I was like, oh my god, I definitely try to make sure that everything's okay and there's no not too many harsh feelings. And I I go so far as like when I talk to my therapist, whenever I complain about everyone, then I have to like give all the circumstances which somehow justify anything that they could have done to me. And I'm like, well, there's all these things of why they may have thought this, but it still hurt my feelings or it still made me feel bad. But it's not their fault. They have been operated by outside circumstances, or I provoked them, or so many things, or they're not always, I make excuses. And so I think in that regard, I think it's harder to do that on the page when you're writing with yourself. And there's something else I wanted to say here about that, but
Is it like where
page.
Where she feels
Yeah, go
like
ahead.
when you're writing some of these problems that you have down, that you kind of have to face them in a different way, where you can't excuse them as much because you keep writing about them? Is that what you're sensing?
Yeah, I think like it's week 4 of this process, right? So things are still gonna come up and flourish. And that is another thing she says, I think, in one of the tasks. It's like, oh, don't beat yourself up because you haven't felt all of these changes come through. And then this was just making me feel like when about being right about it, like so there's like this feeling like I want to be doing the stuff that she's saying. And I had this realization, and I have to like remind myself of these things where it's just like she's throwing a lot of tools at us, and some tools we're going to respond to and others we're not. Others are going to be everyone's different, right? But she's throwing a lot of things at us. And Isolde, you've been really good at being like you don't have to do things that don't work for you. And that's a really good thing to remember, because like I know I've been struggling with like just trying to do the things the right way, like it's keeping me from following some of my instincts. I'm like, oh, well, I want to make sure I do it the right way. What's the right way? And I have that right way creeping in. But so in regards to that, I haven't felt that extreme level of that. I feel sometimes disconnected from the writing, or like I'm like avoiding those moments, and that's when my mind is going wandering, so I'm not writing about them or something. But I think they're gonna come through. Isolde, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, well, so interesting. First of all, thank you all for sharing, because it makes me go, is it okay to be the lone voice of dissent? But I think I am going to be the lone voice of dissent.
Oh, okay.
Not dissent, but just like mine. I had a different experience, as is evidenced by, before we started recording this episode, I had a big leak and the water was coming through the walls, and I probably lost a few dear pieces of furniture and various other things, blah blah blah. Oh, and one of the it's a I'm like, I'm really bummed, but oh well, it is what it is. And as soon as we're done recording, I'm gonna go see what I can salvage. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because one of the things that I was really focusing on this week was the fact that in my morning pages I was going, I want to move, I want to move, I want to move, I want to move, I can't wait to move. I want to live in a different neighborhood. I can't wait to be away from this landlord. And like she says, there's only so long you can bitch and whine about something before the morning pages show, you see it show up again and again and again, and then you realize, I have to do something about it. And so I can't move because of the lease, but I can start filling out the information for lotteries and various other things that are actually actively doing something about the issue that I keep writing about in my morning pages, if you see what I mean. So I can do something about it, even if I can't do the thing that I'm saying I want to do because I can't move until the end of November. I can set the stage. I can put things in place so that they do what I want them to do when the time does come. So that's the kind of thing that I'm noticing, is that, maybe I can't immediately fix the thing that I know is wrong or address the thing that I know I need to address or deal with the issue, but I can at least start laying the groundwork. And if I admit the thing to myself that this is something I need to do or want to do in the morning pages, or just, through the creative process, or just through thinking about them, if I admit it to myself, I'm a fix-it personality. So immediately I go into, okay, I need to do something about it. If I can't do the thing that will make it 100% better, I can at least do something that will make it moving in the right direction. So that's kind of how I feel about it in that way. Megan, to back to you now. How do you feel about it? What are your thoughts as far as how that kind of thing is working in your world?
Yeah, I actually found that for me, the morning pages have been really illuminating a lot of things that I was definitely aware of before. But like she says, you can only bitch about something so many times before it starts to feel tired, even to you. And one thing I wasn't even really aware of as a thing that was bothering me is the fact that I still have pandemic hair, and I realize that's been coming up for me lately. And it's not just really about hair; it's about how I'm showing up in the world, and what stage of life I'm in a way. Am I still in pandemic mode? Am I still, hunkered down waiting for the next shoe to drop? How am I viewing the possibilities in my life, and how is that affecting the choices I'm making around all aspects of my life, even something really personal like that? And yeah, so that was one way in which I saw kind of the integrity piece coming through. I'm not sure that I would even call it integrity. She uses that word, but for me, it's more like clarity.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say, Megan.
Yeah. It's more like clarity. These are things that I was already kind of aware of, but just seeing it coming up again and again in the pages kind of shows me that this is something that I probably do need to address, because it actually is something that's, coming to the surface in my thoughts.
She said something that really spoke to me, that I feel like conveys what you're saying now and what Isolde was just speaking about. And it's about the morning pages. She says, as we clarify our perceptions, we lose our misconceptions. As we eliminate ambiguity, we lose illusion as well. We arrive at clarity, and clarity creates change.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I think that's perfect right there.
I'm
So
sure-
something else.
I'm sure
sorry, go
I'm sure your hair looks great, and I can definitely understand a new haircut, just changing, just the whole vibe.
Yeah, totally. The last one was August of 2019. God, I don't even want to think about it. Anyway, moving on. So something else I wanted to bring up in relation to this chapter is the idea of buried dreams, because I thought before we even get to the tasks section, there's a reason why she put this kind of in the middle of the chapter as something you go through and work through before you even start thinking about the tasks at the end of the book. And I think my sense of what she was getting at with that is that once you start to acknowledge these things in the past, even if they're silly or things that you sort of abandoned when you were a kid, once you start to recognize those things and elevate them a little bit, it can start to illuminate other things in your creative life that you might be neglecting, or you might even start to see possibilities that you might have been totally invisible to you before, because you weren't acknowledging those parts that you'd sort of just let sit there for years. And I just wondered how all of you have felt about that. Do you think that kind of exercise has value in that way? So, Alan, why don't you start this time?
It's funny. I'd love to start because I was like, I'm going to be prepared for today's episode and think about these things. And I was flipping through the book, and I came across this part, and I was like, oh man, I did not do this at all. I just sort of, I think I read it and I forgot about it, and I went to the next thing. So, but I want to say that I think like it is about remembering the things that you like, because part of me has felt like like I've lost a sense of curiosity, and I've done the thing that I said I would never do as a young young believer in life and magic, and I've started to say that I can't do these things, or I don't do these things, or I don't know how to do these things, and I've realized I've locked all of these things off to myself. And so part of the thing I've been curious about lately is music, and I keep thinking that because my brother was so into music, somehow I thought that was his thing, and I had to choose something else, and I did theater and not music. And even though I sometimes did musical theater, I never let myself I always told myself I don't really like musical theater, and then I'd be like, I saw Les Mis in the theaters, the movie, and I was like singing every word, and I was like, I guess at some point I did like musicals, and I forgot about it. And so my point is, I think like we sort of can forget ourselves, can't forget the things that sparked joy in us, and it's good to go back and be like, what are these things? What are these little things? I've been thinking about cooking again. Like I've been wanting to play this idea with being like a chef, or opening like a vegan restaurant or something, but it sounds daunting and scary, and so I don't investigate, or I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing, and I shut it down. And I think this book is pointing you towards like following those things that are interesting to you, and not shutting them down, and opening those doors back up again, and saying like, you can still do it. You can you can listen to that voice, you can follow the fun. It doesn't have to be your entire life. You can just like spend a year investigating. If you don't like it, you can always stop doing it. But it's like that, how old will you be when you if you don't learn how to do it, right? That's that thing. Like I'm referring to that phrase from a few weeks ago where she says, how old will I be by the time I get good at this? And then the answer is, how old will you be if you don't, right? It's the same age. So I think it's really good to do that, and when I do focus on that, some things do come up for me, and that's been really interesting. And like I did a 30-day yoga challenge, and it's reminded me that I really like doing yoga, and I always think like it's a chore, but I actually really like it, and it's been fun for me. So that's something I have to be aware of now. Sergio, were you able to do this exercise, and how do you feel about the concept of looking back and making these lists?
Thank you for the pass. I want to say congrats on the 30-day yoga challenge. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
I like to do a little bit of yoga, pretty basic yoga if I'm being honest, every day with my stretching and meditation. It's a little routine that I try to do. So that's really awesome that you did that. As far as this exercise, I think that it mostly made me realize that I want to be more creative. There's things that I've always enjoyed, but I never thought to pursue, because for me, music was like the main thing initially growing up, and then it became writing, and it's like that's what I'm gonna do, right? I'm a musician, but I'm a writer, really. And so making those lists made me realize that there's other things that I would like to explore. For example, I know I mentioned dancing in the past, so like taking dancing classes. Also, photography and painting. Painting was was an answer rather for a lot of. So I think it was like 5 or 6 of those kind of list-based questions, and painting was on there a lot. And I do draw a little as well, mostly like cartoon stuff, just with a pencil. And when I was younger, I tried using colors, and it was just awful in my opinion. And I never took a class or anything, but I guess I didn't realize how much I probably wish I did take a class or pursued art in that way a little more. And there's also a question of like things that you would things that sound fun but you would never do. And I think the realization there was that if I wasn't afraid of heights, I'd probably do a lot more of things that involve heights, like skydive or fly in an air balloon or things like that, which was interesting to realize that I wish I could do those things a lot more than I initially thought, just because I'm afraid of them. So I've always been like, nah, I'm good off that. But who doesn't want to skydive, right? Who doesn't want to fly? That would be weird if you didn't.
Yeah, I was just remembering, Sergio. I did go on a hot air balloon ride several years ago with my brother and my mom in Mexico over these pyramids.
That sounds amazing.
It was so great, but I was like, no problem. This sounds great. It's just a hot air balloon ride. And I ended up feeling sick, and I often get, like, Montezuma's Revenge down there, but I got sick, like, around the day we were supposed to go, and I questioned. I was like, am I, like, sick, or am I just, like, having nerves that I didn't know I had?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and that came out for me because I've been processing other stuff, and I'm like, is this a feeling that's not being honest with me? But it's just, I don't think I have a fear of heights, but that's somehow it did manifest itself in a way. I identified it as like, I think there's like a little bit of part of me that's just afraid of it. But it was actually the smoothest ride I've ever done, and you barely know that you're flying until you just like look down and you're just like, this is so easy and cool. But I definitely recommend it, and if you want someone to hold you.
Thank you, Alan. That's super reassuring, and yeah, I can understand mind over matter. So maybe your head was playing tricks on you that day, but I'm so glad that you went and that it was a smooth ride. I would definitely love to do that in the future at some point if I can muster the nerve, and I wouldn't mind having you by my side, buddy. I'm sorry that I called you buddy, but
that's
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Isolde, how are you feeling about this exercise? Were you able to do the list?
I was, and I've been skydiving, and I love it.
That's awesome.
And yeah, we were down in Key West, and for my 43rd birthday, because I go to Key West once a year, whether I need to or not, and have been for many years. And I said to Rich, honey, I want to go skydiving. And he, who does have a fear of heights, sort of swallowed and went, okay, I guess we're going skydiving.
Cool.
And it was, I am a control freak, and you are not in control. It's the most freeing experience I've ever had, that little bit of free fall. So the thing that I think about these exercises, and a lot of this stuff, I mean, this is my third time through the book, so it's a little different than if you've never gone through the book before. But the way I look at this, and I did do them, but I'm the kind of person that if I think to myself, I'd like to try this, I go do it, right? So I wanted to learn how to scuba dive. I learned how to scuba dive. I wanted to go skydiving. I went skydiving. Whatever, I wanted to go to Cuba. I figured out a way to go to Cuba. So I'm that kind of person where I usually, if something strikes my fancy, I will figure out a way to make it happen. So that's kind of what this is. So I was able to go, yeah, I want to do more dancing too. I want to take a modern dance class. I've never taken an actual dance class, even though I love to dance. I want to do more stand-up comedy. I want to travel more. There are things that I want to do. I want to play in a pickup band because I'm a professional musician. I usually only play gigs for money, right? And so there's a part of me that's going, what if you were to just join some kind of the pickup band that meets in a pub and plays, and you bring like I do when I go to Ireland, I bring my fiddle and I play in Irish music sessions up and down the coast of Ireland. And nobody's trying to pay, the only payment you get is that musicians drink for free. So I have a lot of hot ports because I don't drink beer. And yeah, I know it is. It's good payment. Plus you meet a lot of really great people and all this other stuff. So there's this lovely thing where I'm not on stage in front of anybody. I'm just one of the band and I'm offering up tunes and it's great. On the other hand, it's funny that you were talking about going to the House of Yes. I love the House of Yes. It's right near where I used to live. Love, love, love the House of Yes. And that's one thing I have always wanted to do but never have yet, and that is to figure out a way to do burlesque. I would like to try it. I don't know if if I have anything that is burlesque like. So it's something that I would have to devote time to. And if I ever decide to really put my energy towards it, I'll let you know, because I'm going to want you to come to the show. But for now, that's really the only thing that I can go, that's something that I would like to do. It's not that I'd never do it, and that's the problem with that whole question. I inherent to the question is a little bit of shame. If you see what I mean, like, oh, list 3 things I'd never do. Why wouldn't I do them? I might do it. I absolutely would. And so I kind of in my head rephrased the question to 3 things I've never done but would really like to. So it's not, because that whole, oh, I'd never do that, it feels like it's shaming. It was actually, yeah, there was this. I'm gonna see if I can remember this story well enough to tell it. So I'm doing a lot of pitching to be on podcasts right now, and there was a woman who was looking for guests who have survived trauma, physical abuse or sexual abuse or whatever, and she talks about how she is trying to help people heal from the traumatic experience, and trying to help them heal from the shame of their past. And when I filled out the thing, she said, list the shameful experience that you went through. And I stopped right there and stopped with the application, because I'm like, no, it's not a shameful experience. That's the whole point. It was a traumatic experience, but it's certainly not anything I need to be ashamed of. And so I keep thinking to myself as I look through everybody's writing, no matter what I'm reading, no matter what I'm looking at and evaluating, I'm looking at the words we use and how often they are derogatory and they are self-defeating and they are full of shame when you don't even mean to. I mean, she's a therapist looking to help people work through their shame. And yet when she was talking about it, she said, list the shameful experience. No, it was a traumatic experience, not a shameful experience. So I felt the same way about that question in Cameron's book, that inherent to it was this weird guilt, shame thing that, oh, it's something I'd never do, and therefore it's a problem. And it really made me sort of perk up my ears and go, wait, how do I want to approach this? And again, I come back to this book. She comes to it with her own filters, whatever her filters are. She's just a person writing this. She's not, a guru up on high. And so I kind of, keep the best, lose the rest. Whenever I come across something in what she's saying that has that implied guilt and shame, I translate it in my head into something else, because it's not worth the pain of feeling the shame that seems to be inherent to what she's saying in some of these exercises and some of the things that she's saying. Like, I'm not there yet, maybe, or maybe I'm past it. I don't know. But I absolutely, patently, categorically refuse to feel ashamed about any of my past, whatever decisions I've made, whatever happened to me, whatever I went through. I refuse to be ashamed by it. And I refuse to immediately kind of go, oh, that's not something I'd ever do. Wait a minute. Who says? Who gets to judge that that's not something I'd ever do? If I choose to do it, or if I think I want to do it, I'll figure out a way to do it. And that's the process I went through when I was looking at that exercise, so that I could feel okay doing the exercise, rather than sort of taking on the patina of this. It's not even uncomfortable. It's just feh. That's what my mother would say when I would walk up with like dirty hands and holding something gross. She would, brush it off my hands and go, feh. And that's kind of how I felt about some of the stuff that she said, because it felt inappropriate for a healing process.
I agree.
So
yeah,
there
I agree
you
with you,
go.
Zolda. I saw that. I did remember. I saw it just now. I saw it earlier, and it just feels incongruous to the work that she's laid down, to say, like, because also it's not like something you would never do because it doesn't sound fun. It's something you would never do that sounds fun. So, and I do think she is trying to get you to take a closer look. And there's probably you have done this several times, but it also just feels like, what would I never? It felt like weird to think that, like, why would I never do something? And
That
right now
sounds
I'm trying
fun.
to open myself up. Or why would I think about what I would never do and lock in on that sort of negative thing? And it's just, I'm glad it struck you that way, and I felt that same thing. And so I just want to say, yeah, it feels weird to be like, why would you have this, or why would you say you would never do it and say that it sounds fun? It's like, and I'm sure
Exactly. It feels incongruous somehow, and like you're rubbing a cat's fur the wrong way. But I don't want to sidetrack us. I know we're in a thing. Sorry about that, Megan. Megan, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's funny. One of the reasons why I wanted to ask this question is that I think I kind of reacted to it a little bit the way Isolde did, like that she's sort of coming at it with the presumption not only of shame, but also that that everyone reading the book is sort of limited in the same way. And I think this is part of similar to the issue I've had with her writing in the past, where she's definitely writing from one specific paradigm, but she's not really acknowledging that in the way she's writing from that paradigm. She's constructing her paradigm as if it's everyone's paradigm. And I think that that's one way in which, I mean, every time she does that, it sort of pulls me right out of the right out of the book. And because I think I'm also someone who, if there's something that I want to do, I mean, I will find a way to do it, you know, even if it's something that I don't have the resources to do right now. There's not really the feeling that I can't or shouldn't do it. And I think that, you know, that very much does come from a place of having privilege, you know, and being able to own that in life, and not having been told over and over again that I can't or shouldn't do things. So I think that kind of process can definitely have value to different people. But I think the way she's constructing it with the presumption of shame, I'm not sure that I found that very useful at all. And I think, like Isolde said, it can be, I can see how that could be really damaging to someone who's already done a lot of work coming through their own experiences. So yeah, I think that's a really good conversation for us to have. So I wanted to move on to everybody's favorite part of this chapter, I'm sure, the reading deprivation section.
Uh-oh.
So I wanted to ask, did anyone actually complete this exercise, like 7 days no reading whatsoever? Isolde, let's start with you.
Hell no.
Hell no.
That's my answer. Yeah, I would have loved to have completed the exercise. I did. The very first time I did the book, I did complete the exercise. It was awful. But this time I read minimally. I read when I had to for work. And, you know, it's interesting. She says, well, you've procrastinated putting things off a week before. You should be able to. Can you tell I'm a little pissed at her this week? I think I'm pissed at her. Because you know what, I can't. I had a client who was on a tight deadline, and I had to rewrite this cover letter for her, and there was no way not to do it by Thursday. There was just no way. So I read, and I did it gleefully because I was helping my client out. And so yeah, absolutely. That's again, keep the best, lose the rest. But it really, I get what she's saying. So what I did, even though I had to read and you know, I love to read, so I read as often as I can. What I did though was I was very conscious about the time I spend doing things that are not creative. And this is something that I've been thinking about a lot over the last few years. It's between being a content creator and a content consumer. And so, you know, looking at social media, or even reading a newspaper, or watching a TV show or a movie, that's content consumption. And I love it. They used to call me the TV queen when I was a kid, because I could tell you every single thing that was on any channel. Now, this is before we had 500 channels, of course, but I used to know the TV guide backwards and forwards, and people could stop me in the street and ask me what's on Wednesday night at 8:30, and I'd be able to tell them. Because I loved television was a revelation when I first came to this country. So anyway, so I love good television. I love good movies. I love reading. I love all of that stuff. But I can also use it as a balm instead of using it as entertainment. And I know that about myself. Like when I'm really stressed, I love watching a murder mystery because I know at the end the mystery will be solved. So it's very comforting. Even if it's a murder mystery, it's still very comforting. So what I did this week was, yeah, I read when I had to, but then I really became conscious of when I was consuming content that was for entertainment or being a balm as opposed to creating content. And I refocused myself on creating content as often as I could when I saw it happening. So that's where I am with it. Alan, what about you?
Caught me in a yawn. Sorry. I was just,
Oops.
I was like, I'm listening. Okay, yawn. This is yeah, this is funny. You know, I sent you guys a message this week and said, how's everyone doing with the reading deprivation? And you guys were all so engaged in your reading deprivation that you did not read that message nor respond to me. And I tried to engage in it, and it was so funny because I came upon it and I was like, reading deprivation. I've been trying to increase my reading of books, of like more deliberate literature or something like that, because I just, how it is nowadays, we get caught on our phone and just scroll or, do that. So I did try to step away from that aspect of it, and I did find myself habitually coming back to it, but it was with that intentions that I was able to sort of walk away a little bit easier. But then, like, I think Friday night or maybe Saturday night, I just was on there and I saw somebody posting about something, and I just got caught and I engaged, and I was just sort of flippant and sarcastic and not useful discussion, and they were attacking, and I was just like getting heated, and I was like, what am I doing? This is what I don't want to be doing. I'm absolutely focused on the wrong thing, and that was very frustrating. But the beginning of the week was better for me, and I did turn my attention towards writing more stuff, and thinking more deliberately, and getting a head start on this. I was able to read the book a little earlier in the week, so it also came and went through my head. But I found it very useful, and I found, like, when I did consume content, I was a little bit more aware of what I was doing, or deliberate about it and mindful. But it definitely got harder and harder to do later in the week, and I definitely slid a lot. But I found it very interesting because it was really pushing me, and I still had a lot of resistance to write or to create or do different things. But I felt like a very strong push to do some new things, and that was cool. Sergio, how did it go for you, this writing deprivation?
So I'm still
Reading deprivation, sorry.
So I'm still trying to hold in my laughs over Isolde's hell no. That was such a good response for me. In regards to that, I do agree that not everything she says correlates or has the same sentiment for all of us. So I like this idea that we keep pushing of doing the artist way, your way, right? And as far as reading deprivation goes, so unfortunately for me, I finished the chapter, I should say, a few days into this week. So when I got to that point, I had already read some this week. So I wasn't able to accomplish that, but I do want to try that. So with this upcoming week, I'm going to try doing the reading deprivation. And I don't know, she says that you might end up filling your time with, maybe being more productive or being more creative, but I'm not sure if I'm hopeful that that would happen, but I'm not sure if I might just fill up my time with other hobbies, because I just have so many hobbies. So instead of reading, I might play a video game or listen to some vinyl or just do one of the many hobbies that I have. So I'm not sure what's going to happen, if I'm just going to do things like that or maybe write more, which I'm hoping is the outcome. So this upcoming week, starting today, I'm going to try to do the reading deprivation. Wish me luck. Megan.
Good luck.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the positive vibes. Megan, how about you? Were you able to do this for the past week?
Well, I think that for me, I almost did it on easy mode because I was moving this week, which was a lot of driving, and then I had several days of being holed up in my apartment during the snowstorm, just kind of reorganizing things. So I was already kind of in a mode where I wasn't going to be spending a lot of time reading anyway. But I did still have to work, and so there was that. And so I would say, aside from like the essential reading I had to do for my job, I lasted with the actual deprivation for maybe 36 hours. Like I will just be honest, it was really, really hard, even given all of those factors that were kind of moving in my favor. And now that I've had a couple of days to think about it, I really think that it's more like the exercise itself is less useful to me personally than it is to consider like why I think she put this exercise in the book. And I think the quality that she's talking about, like the noise in the brain and how sometimes that can sort of blur the uniqueness of your soul or whatever, like that sort of does speak to, I think, a way in which I do read sometimes, like a little bit like what Isolde was talking about. I think it helped me be a little bit more mindful about like the doom scrolling I do, for example, like or when I'm literally just killing time, I'm not consuming content in any sort of mindful way or for really any purpose. It's just really a distraction. So to me, that was the most useful part of this exercise. It really did force me for that brief period of time to really think about that, like when I'm standing in line somewhere and I want to open up my phone and like scroll through Twitter, like why am I doing that? And so I think in that way it was useful, but I'm not sure that like just not it's not realistic, I think, for me, and I know she talks about this in the book too, like but for me, I think it's just not, it's not doable in a way. I think I just tend to, it was a struggle.
She says, I'm sorry, there's a quote in the book that you just made me think of with your answer by Brenda Yulin. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing her last name. And it says, we are always doing something, talking, reading, listening to the radio, planning what's next. The mind is kept naggingly busy on some easy, unimportant external thing all day. And I get that, but what about when it comes to things like work? I do a lot of freelancing, as I've said, and now I'm thinking about next week. I'm definitely going to have to do some reading for those jobs. So now I'm already conflicted about trying this only 15 minutes later. How do you feel about that? Is that something that you, Megan, or the rest of the crew feel for work it's acceptable, or?
Oh yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, you need to have a job. Exactly. That's sustaining you. I mean, you need to continue making money in order to fuel your creative life. I think so. I think, I mean, I almost think the exercise became more useful to me once I became more okay with making those compromises. Like even though I only lasted with total deprivation for the 36 hours, throughout the whole week I was able to continue being a little bit more mindful about the decisions I was making around reading, and I think that's really where it was more useful. So I think, I mean, I think it's fine to really look at all of these exercises and just sort of use what's useful to you, even if you can't commit to the entire 7 days of deprivation, like she recommends.
Just adjust accordingly.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. I was gonna say, sorry, when Isolde was talking about the same thing, it's like it feels like it's sort of written for a different demographic or a different like situation. Like she talks about, like like just step away from your office for a second. Like I don't have an office. I don't I don't have those same boundaries or setups that I can just be like, oh, I'll just put that off until next week. When people want something from me, they want it when they want it, and I think you have to do that. But I did find it useful when I was like going into the city. I would not just play games on my phone. I was looking at people and observing the people, and that was like a nice still moment and quiet moment just to observe. And like everybody's it is really funny to look at everyone, how everyone's just tuned into their phones, and then you see the other people who aren't on their phones, and that's also kind of interesting. And so I think that definitely you have to do what you can, and that I think it's almost probably impossible to go like the whole week without looking at, unless you're like at a retreat or something, which would be nice, but that's not the situation we're doing. We're actively living our lives while doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think there are a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to want someone to explain what doom scrolling is, because you said it, Megan, and I don't know what you meant. But I want to come back to that. I want to say that we have to remember, as I said, she's not a guru up on the mountain. She's writing it from her perspective, and her perspective she wrote this when she was a full-time screenwriter who was married to Martin Scorsese, right? So we have to remember that as part of her process, she was in a place where she could wait for a week to do whatever it was she was doing and not read or whatever. And if someone is like that, if they're, again, I'm pissed at Julia Cameron. Sorry, Ms. Cameron, I'm pissed at you.
Sorry, Ms. Cameron.
If you are in the place where you're going, I can't possibly not read, I have to do X, right? I think the whole point of this exercise is, yeah, if you could not read for a week, okay, that's great. But if you have to read, maybe the thing to do is to be mindful and purposeful with what you're reading, right? So if you have to read a letter for work, or if you have to write something, or whatever it is you're doing, and you have to edit it or whatever, be purposeful about it, and then be purposeful about the next thing you do that isn't reading. And I think so much of it, I mean, I'm writing a book called The Mindful Creative, for Pete's sake, right? So it's all about that notion of being mindful with our creativity, with our inner artist. And I think it was it Camus who said, be orderly in your life so that you can be wild in your art. I love that. You know, first time, I don't remember if it might have been Oscar Wilde. I'm going to have to look up who said it. But it's a brilliant quote, because there's this notion that we have to be mad and crazy as artists. No, we don't. We can pay all our bills. We can pay the rent. We can have plenty of food in the refrigerator. We can sweep the floor and still make incredible, wild, passionate, unbelievable, miraculous art. The same thing goes for this, I think. You know, if you're reading and you're reading kind of blah, I'm just reading, I'm scrolling through social, that's one thing. But if you're deciding that you need to read for work, read for work. If you're deciding not to read, then do something purposeful with the other however many hours of the day that you have to be creative. That's my thought on it.
So for the following week, if I'm going to try this, then I should just cut off recreational reading is my takeaway. And also doom scrolling, which I think, Megan, would you like to take that one?
Sorry, what was that? I think my audio cut out for a second.
Doom scrolling, would you like to elaborate on what that is and why we shouldn't do that?
Yeah. Doom scrolling is basically, it's a sort of catch-all word for when you're just sort of scrolling through, like, either the news app on your phone, or just like Twitter or whatever, anywhere where you're going to see like endless horrible news,
like negative,
over
exactly.
and over and over again. Until you just feel horrible, no matter where you are in your day or your life.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling. I completely know that feeling, and it's okay. Now I understand what it is. I thought it was more like when you read stuff from other people, like on social media, where they seemingly have these perfect lives, and you start comparing your life to theirs, and you feel like everything is just gloom and doom and dark despair. But it sounds like doom scrolling is something different than what I'm talking about. But thank you for explaining it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So, the last thing I thought we should cover is the task. So I figured we can all just kind of go around round table style and just talk about whatever tasks really struck you, if any of them did. You can talk about which of them kind of spoke to you, which really didn't. If there's any that you felt really strongly about in a negative way, definitely talk about that. Let's start with Alan.
Okay, thanks, Megan. So the task that So I did. I think in this week's check-in or something, or she often says, "Was there any moments of synchronicity?" And I should mention that I went to the House of Yes, and I was talking to this guy, and I told him I was doing the Artist Way, and I was doing this moment, and he said, it's like, oh, I tried to do that this past summer or the year before, and I only got halfway through it, basically. But he said I just got my letters back, or maybe he did it in August or something. He's like, I just got my letters back, and I said, your letters? And he mentioned the letter from the 80-year-old and the 8-year-old self, and he said it was really nice to get those back. And I was like, oh, so you mailed them to yourself? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, that's really cool. And I don't know, I think I want to do that. I did write them, and I tried not to censor myself or edit or try to I don't know, I tried to just like let myself write from that perspective, and it's like I think I don't know, I think my dad died at 72, and so there's always part of you that thinks, am I gonna die at 72 or whatever? Like somehow we just have the same DNA and therefore the same life, but obviously it's not that. So I just tried not to lean into that, and I tried to believe in myself as a healthy 80-year-old, having done accomplishments, and it was nice, and I tried to be sweet to myself. So that was cool. And writing to myself as an 8-year-old was interesting, because I think there was a lot about my family in there, and I think that's been a big impact on my life, obviously, or to me it's obvious, but also it feels like sometimes like I'm just out here alone. And just speaking that, it reminded me that my sister a couple of weeks ago, Alicia, that I mentioned last week, she had said that she was finally interested in supporting me. I've always wanted her to be like my manager and make sure I can get the stuff done that I need to do and be organized for me. And she sort of hinted that she would be into that, and I was like, oh, are you gonna be a shadow artist now? So I sort of shot her down, but I really want her to align with her, because like I've always had a great experiences being creative with my family. They were in when I had a theater in Tampa, I always used them. I put my brother in my solo show up here as a dancer, which was amazing, and my other sister was assistant director, a co-director with me, and a stage manager, and it's been very beneficial for me, so I think that would be good. And then I want to bring this up because I think you guys might have something to say about it too, but the artist prayer, write your own artist prayer, and I did not do it, and I thought about it, and I was like, I did type it all out, so I was like reading it, but this actually is old. It made me a little annoyed because it says type your own artist prayer, and then there's just a page number where you can find the artist prayer in the appendix, and there's no explanation or like what you should do, like what it's for. It's just sitting there in the back, like whenever you need me, I'm here. And so I was like intimidated by it, and I was like, I would like to do that, but I'm not a prayer. And I think this is funny because I'm going to call myself out from like week 2 or week 1 where I said like I really believe in the power of saying mantras and saying where you go, and I don't often use those things. I do them in my morning pages, and it's sort of a struggle to do it, but then I don't do it outside of that. And I think like part of it is I'm intimidated by what I do see, the power that happens when I do it, and when I turn my focus that way, and then so I'm like a little maybe a little afraid of that power. But I didn't write my own artist prayer, and I want to see what you guys thought about that. So I'll go over to you, Isolde, if you want to talk about the artist prayer or any of the other tasks. It's your ball.
My ball. All right, cool. First of all, I'm right there with you as far as the artist prayer is concerned, but also I feel like manifesting what we want never happens in a vacuum. I have a dear friend who had a high priestess who used to say the words, "You cannot cast a spell to lose weight while eating a Snickers bar." And the first time my friend Tina said that to me, I was like, yes, absolutely. So you're already doing the tactical, practical work here now. And the prayer stuff is, to me, it's manifesting. So I don't look at it like I'm praying to, her, oh, great creator, blah, blah, blah stuff. I'm not going there. It's not something that works for me. So I have an altar, and I meditate at the altar every morning, and I affirm for myself what I want. So I have sort of what could be considered an artist prayer, but it's not a prayer to anyone. But I back it up with action, right? I back it up with writing 1,000 words a day at least. I back it up with doing my yoga every day. I back it up. So you're already doing a lot of the things. The prayer to me is just, I would remove the word prayer even, and I put it in the form of an affirmation that you pretend until it is the way it is, that it is the way it is, if you see what I mean. So it will be the way you want it to be, but you want to act like it's already in process, because it is, because you're already doing something about it. So that's how I look at that whole part of it, is what I took away from it. As far as the other stuff, again, like I said, when I want to do something, I tend to do it. But if I were to talk to myself now, when I was 8, I mean, some of it is that I will, basically say it's going to be okay. But talking to myself when I was 8, I would say it's going to be okay, right? You will work through it. But when I was an 8-year-old, I was probably more fearless. So I would probably say that part of it. I would reiterate, don't be afraid, right? You can afford to be fearless because you've already overcome so freaking much. So that's what that whole statement. But the writing the letter to myself from my 80-year-old self, it's play more. Right? That's so much of what I want to do. I'm 55 freaking years old, and I have worked my ass off for many years, and I want more opportunity to play. So that's part of it. But also write more books, because I have thousands of stories in my head, and I want to get them out before I die, quite frankly. And then the last thing that I had was I said to myself, do what you need to do to get more energy. This is not a dress rehearsal. And that has direct relationship to the fact that I have hypothyroidism and I'm always low energy because of, physical issues, that because the meds to treat hypothyroidism originally came from bovine thyroid hormone from cows and have been tested on animals. I don't use them, and I won't use them, which means that I treat it naturally. But that means that I'm always low energy. So my 80-year-old self sort of admonished my 55-year-old self. God, that's only 25 years. Holy crap. But it sort of admonished my 55-year-old self to go, you need to be focusing on what it will take to get you the energy you need, because you've got a lot of work to do. So that's the other part of it. The rest of it, again, the big situation that I change is the moving. I would like to move. But I did, to end this whole tirade on an up note, my ideal place was a tropical breeze, but it gets cool at night. There's got to be a great view of the ocean so that I can go into the turquoise waters whenever I feel like it. And quite frankly, bioluminescent algae that glows at night is a bonus. A hot tub and a pool, and maybe mountains somewhere in the distance. So maybe Cuba. Maybe Cuba is my ideal place, because that is, or Puerto Rico, which I adored, and still have plans to live there someday. I loved
That's
Puerto
awesome.
Rico. Oh my stars!
Shout out PR.
What an amazing place. What was
Shout
that?
out PR. I'm half Puerto Rican, so that's awesome.
Yay!
That's great.
Oh, El Uyunque was one of the most amazing places I've ever been. And we were lucky enough to find someone who understood vegan mofongo, so I was able to eat like a queen in Puerto Rico. It was amazing. No, so now I'm hungry. All right. Anyway, so those are my thoughts on that. I don't remember whose. I guess Sergio. Sergio, how about you?
Yeah, shout out to vegan mofongo. That sounds
Oh, it was so good.
And I love you said earlier about if you, the child, if the child were to talk to you now, you said you can afford to be fearless. That really stuck with me as older, and I think that's something similar that I would have told, or that my younger self would tell myself now. And
That's awesome.
as far as what Alan was talking about earlier, how he met the person who mailed the letters to himself, and you were thinking about doing that yourself. I found that, like, she says that a couple times for a couple tasks previously, that, write this letter and mail it to yourself. And for me, when that comes up, I'm like, do I really want to mail this to myself? I don't even have many stamps. Do I buy a book of stamps just to mail a few letters to myself as a thing? I guess I don't mail enough items, typically, at all, unless it's like a digital kind of, email. But if you do that, Alan, please let us know how that goes, because I think that's really interesting. The effect that might have if you read it like at least 2-3 months later, or if not longer.
May I make a suggestion? I'm sorry to
Sure.
interrupt, but I'd love to make a suggestion. Can
Yeah,
I?
of course, yes.
Is that
Please.
okay? Okay. So if you have Gmail,
Mm.
you can do a schedule send. So do an email for yourself. Schedule send it to like April 1st or something, and then you'll get this email from yourself in 2 months, and you won't have to put a stamp on it or whatever, or take it to the post office. It'll just be an email that comes as a surprise 2 months from now, or however long from now. So I just wanted to say that.
That's
No,
cool.
that
I was
is-
thinking there must be like a service where you can just like send an email and they'll send you a letter, but maybe that doesn't exist. But I keep wanting it to, so maybe.
No, you're onto something, I think. And no, Isolde, that's a great suggestion. Thank you very much for that. As far as the task, the artist prayer was actually one that I wanted to talk about and share. So I did write an artist prayer. I've been saying it every day since I've written it, and yeah, for me it's more of a mantra, hopefully a positive mantra. And I was wondering if I can read my artist prayer to the crew.
Yeah,
That's all right.
Of
Okay,
course.
I hope no one feels uncomfortable, but if we can virtually join hands. And here we go. I'm going to read my artist prayer. Thankful for life and the creative energy that acts as sustenance. Please allow everyone to find their beacon. May the force be with us. Buddha willing. Amen.
Oh, it's beautiful, Sergio.
Thank you
love
so
it.
much.
I love it.
Thank you so much for joining
And-
me, crew, and everyone listening. Appreciate you.
That's so awesome. And I love May the Force be because I'm like, whenever I hear May the Force be with you, I'm like, and also with
Yes,
you.
this is the way.
This is the way. I love it. I love it.
Thank you so much. Megan, how about you? Was there any task, artist prayer or the letters or anything else that really stood out to you this week?
Well, how do I follow that? That was so spectacular.
Thank you.
For me, the letter from 8-year-old me to me now, that was probably the least useful exercise for me, because all I could think about was like how 8-year-old me would really just be disappointed that I'm not an astronaut writing a dinosaur,
Aw.
a space dinosaur. Like, I think that's how 8-year-old me would have approached it. But the letter from 8-year-old me to me now was useful because it just sort of helped illuminate some of the things that I really want to be focusing on in my life now, like things I really want to invite in, things I'm sort of lingering on that I think aren't serving me. So that was really a useful exercise. I think also for me the prayer exercise, I just sort of wrote the mantras again. Like I read her prayer, it did not resonate with me, so that was kind of where I left that. But I really wish I'd done what Sergio had done and just like wrote something way more awesome than what she did. But
That's perfect.
yeah, and yeah, I think other than that, yeah, that was kind of where I left the exercises. So, some were useful, some were not, but I thought each of them had something to them, and I could sort of see the purpose she was coming around to when she put them in the book, at least. So,
Can I say that I love that your 8-year-old self was aspiring to be an astronaut who rode dinosaurs? quite the auspicious 8-year-old. That's awesome.
Yeah, space dinosaurs specifically.
Space,
So,
never too late. You never know.
yeah, it's never too late. You're right. You're right. Maybe that dream doesn't have to die. So, before we close out, I just wanted to open the floor one more time and just say, does anyone have anything that they wanted to talk about that I didn't get to, or any big point that you think I missed when I was sort of outlining this for us?
I think you did a fantastic job, Megan, of hosting. Thank you so much again. And thank you, everyone, for sharing so much insight this week, as always. And thank you to the listeners as well for listening.
I'm going to echo everything Sergio just said. You've done an amazing job, especially since, thrown into the deep end, and and you were fantastic. I think that so much of this process for me in this chapter about integrity is, I don't know that I agree with her definition of integrity. So again, I keep coming back to, she wrote it through her lens, through her perspective, and she's just one person. And she may have had an intended audience who was not me at this stage in my life, and that's okay. However, the notion of integrity as a person, like you said, Megan, earlier, that it's not just about who you are creatively, but who you are personally, individually, is something that we can all sort of look at. Am I living in integrity? Am I living true to who I am on the deepest levels? Am I creating true to who I am on the deepest levels? Both of those are questions that only you can answer for yourself, whoever you are, whether it's me or Megan or Alan or Sergio or you who are listening. We have to answer those questions for ourselves. So again, if you're doing the book and if some of it makes you uncomfortable, or if it doesn't work or whatever, if it doesn't resonate with you, I think look for your own definitions. Look for your own ways of making it meaningful, like Sergio did with his artist prayer. So that's sort of something I wanted to say as far as this chapter. And next week it's going to be the next step. But in this chapter, there is a wealth of information, but not all of it has to do with doing the exercises. Some of it might be the changes that go on within you that might be happening on sort of a deeper level as you develop your own sense of who you are as an artist. So it might feel weird, but it also might be, I call it gathering the sand to build the sandcastle, right? You want to gather the sand to build the sandcastle. And if you're not quite building the sandcastle yet, that's okay. You might still be gathering sand.
That's
I love that. Beautifully said.
Wow, thank you.
I just want to piggyback on that and just say, like, to me, sense of integrity, what is coming up is just sort of like honoring yourself and moving towards a more authentic self. And I think part of that is really figuring out what works for you. And it made me think of like the various improv schools that are out there, and if you were doing improv like 5-10 years ago, there were a lot of options for you in a lot of different schools of thought, and you could learn them all, and some of them would contradict each other, but it didn't mean like that you couldn't use each of those tools in different situations, right? It was actually just increasing your tool bag. And then I thought of a hammer, which has both the ability to strike in a nail and the ability to pull out a nail, and we're just building that toolkit so we can use things in different ways and finding out what works. So that's what came up when you were talking, Isolde. But that's all
as well, Alan.
I love it.
Right.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and it makes so much sense. There is a way to use the tool that's going to work for you in any given situation. The key is to be self-aware and mindful enough to realize that you have the tool, but also to realize that the way the tool is usually used might not be working for you, but you can come up with another way to use that tool that will work for you exactly the way you need it to.
Exactly. And I just want to piggyback on everyone else and say, Megan, great job hosting. It's been very smooth. Thank you.
Thank you guys, and thank you again to Isolde for giving me the opportunity to host today. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad again to get to hang out with all of you tonight, and also all of you who are listening. Yeah, it's been great.
Yay! That's so awesome. And yeah, I will add again, fantastic job. It's funny how it's different when you are sort of thinking up the answers, and it was different for me too, because I'm sitting here not hosting, not in that headspace, but sort of in the headspace of an explorer rather than the director, if you will, of the episode. And so it's different, and yet you walked into it flawlessly. And Megan, if you're listening to this, you're going to need to subscribe to her podcast when she launches it, because she wants to do it and will. And now that she's hosted an episode, I'm sure this is the beginning of a beautiful journey for Megan. So Megan, thank you once again for hosting so wonderfully what was a contentious chapter in the book. Next week, we are going to talk about what she calls recovering a sense of possibility. And by she, I mean Julia Cameron. And basically, she's talking about examining the payoffs and remaining stuck. And you might be there, you might be stuck still, or you might be totally free by now and living your authentic artist life. But that is the chapter, week 5, that we are going to be talking about next week. We're going to be reading the chapter, we're going to be doing the tasks and the exercises, working through our morning pages, hopefully getting the time to go on an artist date if it does not snow us in again, where the artist date might mean that you like walk into a room and sit down and get very quiet for an hour. Hopefully we'll be able to be out and about. But I want to thank all three of you for being here, for joining me on this sort of bizarre project, but I'm so glad that we're doing it, because it's been helpful to me. Hopefully it's been helpful to you too,
absolutely.
as we explore this. It's really interesting, isn't it, how working through it together was different than working through it alone. So if you're doing this with us, yay for you. Keep going, keep trying, keep listening to your inner self, and I'm so looking forward to next week and through the rest of this project. I am Isolde Trachtenberg. On behalf of Megan Vasilis, Sergio Giovanni, and Alan Fessenden, I want to thank you for joining us. Until next time, please remember to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Isolde Trachtenberg and is copyright 2021. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope. Until next time, remember to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind.